the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, it's a dream game. SMU and Texas, both undefeated and both untied, run together head-on in a collision heard round the football world. It's a perfect football afternoon, chill and a bit blustery, and that crowd is the greatest in the history of Southwestern sports. Over 50,000. This is a vendetta in every sense. And brother, if you saw this one, you've seen them all. The opening kickoff coming up now, and nary a fan present will ever forget it. Dick Harris of Texas kicks to Frank Payne of SMU deep in the end zone. Watch Payne. He gives it on a crisscross to Paul Page. And Texas is fooled. Page goes sensationally down the near sideline behind three blockers he doesn't need. And he's finally dropped on the Texas 19 after an 81-yard run back. SMU continues with sudden lightning. Dynamite Doak Walker goes back to pass. He's got time enough to ride a letter home. And he heaves a strike to fullback Dick McKissick. Texas this time has its eye on Walker, and they're right. Walker does get that ball, but presto chango slips it to Paul Page, and Page simply outruns the Texas team into the end zone for a TD. Walker converts perfectly, and SMU leads 7-0. Texas strikes back furiously. Deep in SMU land, Bobby Lane gives it to pint-sized Byron Guillory, and Guillory goes roaring through for 6 yards. Lane this time feeds the ball to Jarrin Jim Kennedy, who explodes to the SMU 2. Here it is. Lane sends Landry this time, split bucking for a touchdown. And it's SMU 7, Texas 6. Travis Raven holds. Frank Guest kicks perfectly, and it's tied up 7-7. SMU bounces back like a rubber ball. Here, Doak Walker fires a spot pass down the middle of Sid Halliday. Good for 9 yards. SMU's Gil Johnson whips a cross-eyed Chinaman pass downfield to Doak Walker, who takes it on a beautiful finger catch. He's finally blocked out on the Texas 2. Walker sets his men, ready for a try from the 2. McKissick gets it, rams into center this time. Is apparently stopped, then bulldozes over, and SMU leads 13-7. Here's one SMU fans will remember. Walker converts perfectly once more, and it's SMU 14, Texas 7. And Texas comes roaring off the floor. Perry Samuels takes the kickoff on his 5 and comes back to the Texas 19 in a white-hot game. The first half runs out as Lane feeds that ball to Ray Jones on a fake counter, and Jones slants for 2 yards. Opening the second half, Texas kicks off. Paul Page gets it in the corner, starts upfield, runs into trouble immediately, and is smothered way back on the SMU 7. Walker through center this time on a cutback. Like a phantom, they can't hold the man. He goes 20 yards before Jones gets him on a last-minute tackle. This time it's McKissick on a pogo pass to pounding Paul Page, who circles left end for 5 more SMU yards. Texas goes back to work. Bobby Lane waiting, gets it on an optional play. Can't find a receiver. Takes it arm down and lugs it for 7 yards, and the Texas first down. Lane back to pass once more. Again, this time his receivers are bottled. Again, he runs, but Floyd Lewis knocks that ball loose from his hands and then recovers for SMU. Frank Guest for Texas, booting a long one downfield where Doak Walker waits for it in his own 40. Takes it on the SMU 40 to the 45, the 50, down to the Texas 43. Gallant Bobby Lane again this time, throwing a blooper pass out to Byron Guillory in the left flat, this time for a touchdown. The extra point is narrowly missed. SMU 14, Texas 13. SMU has the ball. Doak Walker to Dick McKissick, who goes for 3 yards. SMU's Ed Green boots one upfield to Byron Guillory. Great little scat-back runner. Guillory waits for that ball, takes it, and comes back under scythe-like blocking to the SMU 32-yard line. The Longhorns are frantic. It's getting late. Lane shoots a flat pass to Guillory for 5, but that clock is running out and Texas still trails by a single point. 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds. Lane gets that ball and throws a heart-stopping prayer pass, complete to Jim Kennedy. He's hit down and the game is over. SMU wins 14-13, continues undefeated with 50,000 spectators as limp as ragdoll. In Fort Worth, the TCU Frogs tangle with the mighty Mustangs of SMU. It's a game spectators will never forget. The most exciting football game ever played in the Southwest. If you don't believe it, brother, hang on to those suspenders and just watch. When this game ended, the crowd was tighter than the players. The TCU homecoming queen gets a kiss that the Hayes office would never approve. Now the captains meet for the toss. SMU wins and elects to receive. Down the field goes the opening kickoff from the toe of Wayne Pitcock. A beauty floating down in the end zone to Dynamite Doak Walker, playing his greatest game. He's back to the SMU 31 before he's polished off. SMU bogs down, and Ed Green boots a beauty downfield to TCU. Lindy Berry takes it on his own 20. Playing a standout game, Berry comes back 3 yards before Mustangs deluging. TCU's Berry again. He takes aim and pegs a blooper. Morris Bailey makes an impossible circus catch, and the inspired Froggies are knocking at the door down on the 10. The Froggies send Pistol Pete Stout cannonballing down to the Mustang 2-yard line. Stout batters his way over for a touchdown, and the surprised Ponies are trailing 6-0. TCU is out to pull the biggest upset since Grandpa swallowed the turpentine. The kick for point by Pitcock is just wide. Score still 6-0. Second quarter now. Doak Walker takes it and knifes the Froggy line for a first down. But SMU loses yards right back again. Here's a razzle-dazzle handoff that just doesn't work. Mr. Walker is back to pass and gets thoroughly smeared. The Mustangs can't get started. SMU's Gil Johnson back to pass. Gets it away just in time. Suddenly intercepted by Schenkel, blocks him on the TCU 36. He gets terrific blocking to the 50. Keeps going down the sidelines to the 40, the 35, the 30, the 25, the 20, the 15. Finally stopped on the Mustang 9 after 55 yards. TCU on the SMU 9. Mustangs in trouble. Berry back to pass. He's a gaping hole and streaks through for 7 yards, tripped on the 2-yard line. Berry, the workhorse, carries over for TCU's second touchdown. TCU now leads 12-0, and the Froggy fans are wild with excitement. The kick for point blocked. SMU on its own 36. Walker ripping the Froggy line for 7 yards, trying to get something started. He does. Watch it now. He goes back to pass. He's got bushels of time. Now, All-American Mr. Walker is showing his medal today. Walker splits the uprights with a conversion. TCU 12, SMU 7 now. SMU's Bill Sullivan sends the kickoff booming 65 yards. Taken on the 10 by Carl Knox. Knox fumbles, picks it up. After fumbling again, comes back upfield and is finally speared on the Christian 23-yard line. SMU takes over and the Mustangs get fumbleitis. Dick McKissick bucks the line, boggles the ball, and Mr. Randy Rogers of TCU recovers. TCU's Berry pegs a fourth down prayer pass, and SMU's Paul Page intercepts in the end zone for a touchback. TCU's ball again, Berry pitching to Moorman for 4 yards, and he's really hit. Doak Walker back to pass. He fires a bullseye to Sid Halliday down to the Christian 29. From the TCU 3-yard line, Walker circles in and goes over for the touchdown that puts the Ponies in the lead. It's SMU's turn to go crazy now. 13 for SMU, 12 for TCU. But the Never Say Die Froggies haven't given up. The best is yet to come. Walker's kick for point is wide of the uprights. No good. Ponies ball. Walker back. He gets the ball. Sneaks it on a bootleg reverse to his halfback, Paul Page, for 10 more SMU yards. Now TCU again. Lindy Berry back to throw one. Gets a bead. It's a direct hit to Wayne Rogers for 14 yards. That man Berry again, fading and pitching one to George Bull, who makes a gorgeous falling catch on the SMU 33. TCU on the Mustang 8. Lindy Berry gets that ball, starts out, suddenly trapped. He laterals to Pete Stout, who drives over for a touchdown, and TCU is back in front, 18-13. Here's the vital kick. It's put down. Wayne Pitcock boots it. It's good. TCU 19, SMU 13, 90 seconds left. The TCU kickoff is a beauty, soaring downfield to Doak Walker on the SMU 4. And Walker, pacing himself beautifully, picks up blockers along the far sidelines and tight ropes the chalk line to the 40, the 45, the 50, the 45, the 40, finally spilled on the TCU 36 after a 60-yard return. 60 seconds left. Gil Johnson back to pass. Sees his man Walker downfield. He's a beauty. Walker makes a dazzling catch. He's down to the TCU 9-yard line. The crowd is berserk and frothing. You can almost hear the reflexes popping. 50 seconds now. Johnson back. He fires to Halliday for a touchdown. The conversion is missed and the game ends in a terrific 19-19 tie. When more thrilling games are played, none of the spectators will ever make it through to the finish. At Memorial Stadium in Austin, the the undefeated, untied Texas Longhorn tangles with a fighting Rice Owl before a sellout of 48,000 packed in like peanuts and roasting in a 90-degree sun. It's the largest crowd ever to see a football game in Texas. Texas hasn't beaten Rice in 4 years, and they really want this one. Dick Harris, big Texas tackle, starts the grudge fight with a kickoff, lofting down to the Rice goal line, where it's taken by Verge Eichenberg, who comes pounding back behind a wedge to the Rice 19. Rice on the move now as Carl Russ cracks the Texas line for a yard to his own 45. Texas working from the tee. Here, Bobby Lane and Byron Guillory, the gruesome twosome, collaborate with Guillory bucking for two. From his fullback post, Tom Landry of Texas this time takes a handoff from Bobby Lane, and he explodes through the center of the Rice line for 13 yards before he's nailed on the Rice 35. Here, Lane throws a strike. The left end Max Baumgartner on the 5. He sheds tacklers like a greasy duck, goes into the end zone, and Texas leads 6-0. Lane's conversion here hits the crossbar. No good. Rice comes off the floor fighting, and Don Anderson hits for 7 yards on a crossbuck. Rice Institute ready to go from the tee. Verge Eichenberg fades for a forward, throws one out, intended for George Walmsley. Nope, Tom Landry is there to intercept for Texas on the Rice 47. He starts up the far sideline, stumbles, and is brought down. Mr. Lane again this time, and the Dallas Flash flips one complete to George McCall, grinding out 13 more yards. We're in the second quarter now. Rice on the Longhorn 49. Tobin Rote heaves one, and once again, center Dick Harris muddies up the Rice water with an interception. Froggy Williams, the great Rice end, returns the courtesy by intercepting Mr. Lane's pass on the next play and is immediately hit by the intended receiver, Guillory. And that ball changes hands like a $1947 bill. Carl Russ fumbles, and Baumgartner is in like a hawk on a chicken to recover. Frank Guest now booting for Texas. George Walmsley under it for Rice on the Rice 5-yard line. He gets upfield to the 25 and once again is brought down by that pesky Mr. Baumgartner. Taking the ball from center, Tobin Rote of Rice gives it to Walmsley on a delayed pygmy pass, and Walmsley goes roaring around right in for 13 yards before Byron Guillory snags him. Texas goes to work again, the blonde All-American Bobby Lane. Getting it, feeding it to Byron Guillory, who picks up a yard on an end sweep. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is the play of the day. Watch the blocking on this one. George Walmsley of Rice takes Frank Guess's kick on his own 7. He starts upfield. He cuts to the far sideline. And he's got 50 blockers on this play. He gets down to the Texas 37 and forward laterals to Verge Eichenberg, who goes for a Rice touchdown, which is called back because of the forward lateral to the point of the lateral. Rice threatens. Verge Eichenberg, the big man under for Rice, fires a steamer out to the left to his fullback, Carl Russ. And Russ batters his way through tacklers to the Texas 15, but too late. The first half is over, and Texas still leads 6-0. In the third period, Bobby Lane again gets that ball and tosses a flat pass out to Guillory, who goes through Rice men for a 9-yard Texas pickup. Travis Raven for Texas now, shooting one complete again to Shams in the left flat for 8 more Texas yards. Here's Randall Clay now, moving from a flanker tee, being spilled for a yard loss on the Rice 7. But Texas can't make it. Rice takes over, and Eichenberg gets a beat on Keeney this time for a 16-yard pickup as the Owls come roaring back into Longhorn territory. But Rice loses the ball, and with the ball on the Rice 2, Huey Keeney boots from his own end zone far upfield to Byron Guillory. Guillory waits for it, is under it, has it now. Guillory, avoiding tacklers, runs that ball all the way back to the Rice 27-yard line. Opening the fourth period, Bobby Lane on a quick opener hands it to Paul Campbell, who bucks for 4 yards on a straight power dive. Tom Landry of Texas, a thorn in the Rice side all afternoon, cracks to the Rice 6 for a first and goal to go for Texas. And here's the final nail in the Rice coffin. Jim Kennedy of Texas Nice line, and he's in there for a disputed TD. With the Texas crowd roaring as the game ends, Eichenberg wings one complete to Hurster for a long gain, and Texas, winning 12-0, remains undefeated. It sets the stage for a real Missouri Mudcat against SMU November 1st in Dallas. Down at College Station, Texas, the stampeding SMU Mustangs clash with the ever-dangerous White Knights of Texas A&M. SMU hasn't hung a horse collar on Homer Norton's minions in 8 years. The Aggies win the toss at center field. They elect to receive. SMU's Bill Sullivan puts the foot to the opening kickoff deep to the Aggie 10. Taken there by Stan Holmig, who comes back upfield to the Aggie 21. With the ball on their own 39, the Aggies start blasting immediately. Big Stan Holmig this time, fading to pass. He throws that ball downfield. Nope. SMU's Paul Page intercepts from nowhere on the Aggie 39. SMU comes biting back. Dynamite Doak Walker firing one to Sid Halliday. Good for 8 yards. The Aggies take over again. Stan Holmig fakes a punt. Feeds it behind his back to Bob Good, but this one doesn't work. He's smothered back on the A&M 4. Stan Holmig boots from his end zone upfield to Doak Walker. High. But Walker fumbles and the Aggies recover. The Aggies again. Holmig, the workhorse, connecting with Barney Welch. He makes a beautiful catch on the Mustang 37. Aggie Ralph Daniel waiting for it this time. He gets it and does a jar and John through the middle for 10 more Aggie yards. SMU takes over. Gil Johnson this time, heaving one complete to Dick Reinking on the Aggie 31. This is it, brother, so watch. The star of the game, SMU's Gil Johnson, throws a strike to his man Paul Page, and this one is in there for a touchdown. SMU leads 6-0. Automatic Doak Walker converts perfectly. It's SMU 7, Texas A&M nothing. Back to play. Bill Sullivan on the Mustangs, booting off to Stan Holmig. Back on the Aggie 6. Holmig starts upfield. He whips the long lateral over to Bob Good. Good raises it back beautifully to the Aggie 32. Aggie Burrow Beatty playing a standout game. Completes one to Cotton Howell on the midfield stripe. Howell is finally stopped on the SMU 35 after a 32-yard gain. The Aggies have it on their own 32. Beatty again. Burrow completes one to Country Higgins. Down to the Mustang 30. Second half now. SMU's Gil Johnson pops a screen pass to Dick McKissick for 9 to the Aggie 30. And it's flipping Gil Johnson again. Back he goes, shooting one to Raleigh Blakely on the floor, and Blakely is in there for a TD. SMU 13, Texas A&M nothing. And here's one of the day's surprises. Doak Walker converting, misses, and it's the second kick he's missed all season. SMU Sullivan kicks off to Jennings Anderson, and Anderson roars back to the Farmer 26 as the fourth quarter begins with an Ever Say Die Aggies still behind 13 points. Burl Beatty back this time, and his pass is intercepted by SMU's Dick Reinking on the SMU 39. SMU gets the ball, and Mr. Johnson shotguns one to Mr. Walker, who sneaks down to the Aggie 37 for another Mustang first down. Frank Payne of SMU this time, blasting center down to the Aggie 14. SMU's Bill Moxley gives it on a handoff to Ed Green around right end, all the way down to the Aggie 8-yard line. That man Beatty again for the Aggies. He pitches to Pollock for 24 yards to the SMU 20. Beatty again this time. This pass is a corker. It goes to Welch, who carries it down to the SMU 42. Yes, sir, you guessed it. Beatty heaving once more, and it's good this time to bird it for 10 yards as the game ends. Final score, SMU 13, Texas A&M nothing. And the Mustangs roll along like Old Man River. In Austin, the powerful Texas Longhorns meet underdog TCU. Dutch Meyer has been a hoodoo for great Texas teams of other years. And the big question is, what's the Dutchman up to today? ROTC Air Corps cadets parade before the game, the first time they've ever been on exhibition. TCU wins the toss. Texas will kick off. Down the field goes Frank Guess's kick, taken by TCU's Orient Browning on his own 15-yard line. Back he comes for 17 yards before he's swarmed under. The Froggies go to work. Lendy Berry back to pass. He looks around for a receiver, pitches one to Gaddy, but oops, it's intercepted by Dick Harris of Texas, who's finally spilled on the TCU 25-yard line. Texas on the TCU 10, right half Jim Kennedy, knifing through the TCU line for 7, down to the 3-yard line. Ball's on the 3. Jim Kennedy gets it again, bucks the middle, and he's in there for a Texas touchdown. The Longhorns draw first blood. Texas 6, TCU nothing. The kick for a point, no good. Guess boots off for the Longhorns. A good kick down to Pete Stout on his 5-yard line, and watch the blocking in front of Stout. He starts upfield, is apparently trapped, miraculously avoids 4 tacklers, and is smeared after a 25-yard run back. TCU on its own 28. Lindy Berry trying to pass. He can't find a receiver, has to run, and he goes for just 5 yards before trouble hits him. Texas takes over, and Buckin' Billy Pyle smashes the TCU line into the secondary for 13 yards. Second quarter now, Texas still leading. Lane shoots one to Pepe Blunt for 21 Texas yards. All-American Bobby Lane back to heave one. He sees his man Blunt downfield, fires, and there it is. Texas leads 12-0. Blunt, by the way, is a representative in the Texas legislature. Frank Guess's try for conversion, good. Texas 13, TCU nothing. Here's a real lesson in stiff arming. TCU's Pete Stout gives a good demonstration of it as he picks up 13 yards. TCU deep in Longhorn territory. Lindy Berry carrying the ball, finds a hole for 12 yards before Max Baumgartner horse collars him on a necktie tackle. Texas takes over and Billy Pyle tries center. He's chilled by Randy Rogers for no gain. Second half now, Wayne Pitcock kicks for TCU. Down to Frank Guess, deep on the Texas 3. Guess back under two-man blocking over the 15, the 20, the 25 to the 29-yard line. Bobby Lane this time, looking in vain for a receiver, is chased and run to earth for a 5-yard loss. Watch it. Here's a football player's dream. TCU's Pete Stout stiff arms an official on his way for a 20-yard gain. TCU on the Longhorn 43. Lindy Berry does a high jump for 5 yards, and that's why they're called frogs. TCU's driving now, and Mr. Lindy Berry back to pass. Tries once, twice, 3 times to find a receiver, then decides to lug it and tears off 10 yards around the end. Texas takes over on the TCU 30. Bobby Lane feeds it to Terran Tom Landry on a delayed fullback buck for 15 yards. TCU's ball on the Frog 17 as the fourth quarter begins. Stout can't find a man to throw to, literally chased for a 4-yard pickup, forced to make it. TCU's ball on its own 21, and the Frogs pick up 11 more yards before Ray Jones of Texas upsets the apple cart. Here it is, Schwarzkopf through to block Leon Joslin's kick. Goes back to scoop it up. He's going. Schwarzkopf is gone for a touchdown, and Texas runs the score to 19-0. Guess's kick for point is perfect, and it's 20-0. TCU's ball on its own 8. Carl Knox batters the steer line for 8 yards before Ed Kelly flags him down. Paul Campbell for Texas passes this time, good to Baumgartner, and Baumgartner is hit and turns over like a merry-go-round after a 15-yard gain. Texas stalls and kicks out of danger as another rip snorter ends. The Meyer jinx is momentarily shattered. The Longhorns win 20-0. There's talk of a Sugar Bowl bid for Texas in the offing.